Hi friends, my name is Veera Ravi. I am from Hadoop Mentor channel. Today I come up with a interesting topic which is called Hadoop, and in that we are going to discuss about HDFS. So as part of this video, we are going to see what is HDFS and what is the architecture of HDFS and how it will work. Right? So we know that as we discussed in previous video, Hadoop has two components. Hadoop has two components. One is HDFS. One is HDFS, which is meant for storing large data, which is meant for storing large data. There is another component which is called MapReduce, which is meant for process the data which is stored in HDFS in a parallel fashion. Process the data. So we will talk about MapReduce later. For time being, let's concentrate on HDFS. What is HDFS? What is HDFS? We'll be keep hearing about this question. HDFS stands for Hadoop distributed distributed file system. Distributed file system. What is Hadoop? What is HDFS? HDFS is a Hadoop distributed file system, right? So we already have so many distributed file systems. We already have so many distributed file system. Then why we need Hadoop file system, right? So he's clearly saying that it will store large amount of the data. It means it is not any database. It is not any database. It is a file system. What it is? It is a file system. It is a file system. So now we need to understand what is the file system. So to understand the HDFS in a better way, first try to understand what is a file system. The very first thing is try to understand what is a file system. What is a file system? A file system is a where how you store the data into hard disk. How you store the data into hard disk. So if put in a very simple way, put into a simple way, your file system is the way which your files and directories are placed in your storage device, a storage device, and it's the way of storing the data and retrieving the data from hard disk. Who will use that? It is using by your operating system. It is using by your operating system. So there are multiple file systems available in the market. Like you can say, Windows uses FAT file system, file allocation tables, and Windows NT version onwards they started supporting NTFS. It is like new technology file system. NT means new technology file system. Let's try to understand. The file system is a storing and organizing or managing managing and storing the files in a hard disk. Files in a any storage device. Any storage device. This file system uses by your operating system. It is uses by your operating system. Now there are different type of file systems. There are different type of file systems. Windows uses, it has its own file systems. Linux has its own file system, ext4. And when it comes to Windows, there are some different kind of file systems called FAT, and there is something called NTFS. FAT stands for file allocation table. and NTFS says that new technology file system. NTFS is that new technology file system. Right? And ext4, there are extensions, there are some different kind of file systems. Okay, so we are going to discuss about file system in a different way. Let's assume that how the file system works. First, we'll try to understand how the normal file system works. If you understand how the normal file system works, then we can easily understand distributed file system, and we can understand Hadoop distributed file system, right? So uh, I can say, if you let me take an example here. This is my file system. This is my file system where my operating system, using it, where my operating system will be using this. So in this file system, how the data will be stored? How the data will store? So very simple, guys. The data will be the file system is, I can say other way, like your file system is, you can think such a way that it maintains table where it contains the address of physical storage in the hard disk or storage device, physical storage of your hard disk. You can say in such a way that it's a database where it maintains your file system locations, like file system location in the sense where the data is stored, actual data is stored, right? So it is that will be the reference of the actual storage will be managed by whom? Your file system. Who is using that file system? Your operating system, right? Now let's see how the data will store into hard disk. This is a little important thing we need to understand, because how the hard disk looks. First understand the how hard disk looks. You'll be having hard disk which is called flatters, right? So you'll be having a, right? And in this disk you'll be having you'll be having you'll be having small you'll be having tracks. So actually I'm looking for the circle. You'll be having a tracks like this. You'll be having a tracks like this. And you can draw one more track. So let me draw it here. So you'll be having some tracks like this, and you'll be having a read and write head, right? And your hard disk is divided into tracks and sectors. Tracks and sectors. Tracks and sectors. The data will be stored in this. Data will be stored in this. Data will be stored in this hard disk such a way that in the form of blocks. The data will store in the form of blocks. What is the block? The block is from one sector to another sector, how much amount of the data is occupies, that is a block. That is a block. This is the block. So let's take an example. You have a book. You have a book. The book is hadoop.txt or hadoop.pdf. Okay. In this book, you want to put into your hard disk in the D drive. D drive. Let's say books slash hadoop.pdf. right? So when this PDF want to store in hard disk, what it will do, will normally copy into D drive in this location, right? This managing these locations like a D drive, in that you have a books folder, in that you have this, it's called a file system, who is managing by a file system. Like like you have a D drive. The D drive can have so many folders. In this, again, let's assume that this is books. It can have one more books, right? It can have another things. So here it have a PDF, your Hadoop PDF, right? This structure is managing by your file system. The structure managed by this file system. Now, when you store this file into HDFS, or when you store this file into your local file system, why I'm calling this a local file system? Because it's local to this operating system. Because I'm logged into the same machine, I'm accessing that machine, right? This file system is local to your operating system. This file system is local to this operating system. Now, when you start doing this, the data will store in the form of small blocks. Each block is nothing but one. The space is occupied by one sector to another sector, one sector to another sector. Ideally, these will be small blocks. This will be very small blocks in kbs, in bytes actually. In the k in it will be like if it is a Linux file system, it is a 4 KB, and if it is any other file system based on their microprocessor, or based on their file system, it will be different, right? I hope everyone is able to follow, right? So this file has been divided into pieces internally, and it is loaded into file system. While you are retrieving this also, we will retrieve block by block. What is a block? Block is a chunk of, or a piece of data which is stored in between one sector to another sector. So here these are track and these are sectors, right? So this one is a block of data. This one is a block of data. So when it comes to normal file system, when it comes to the normal file system, when it comes to normal file system, the data will be very small block. The the block is, the data will be divided into very small blocks. The small block is 4 KB. The small block is 4 KB. So the retrieving and storing is go through, I mean, the retrieving while storing, physically it internally it's storing in the small blocks, but when it comes to user level, you may not knowing this, it is storing in this, right? This is the file system. This is the file system, right? So let's try to understand what is a distributed file system. We'll understand distributed file system in next video.